What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Doubling Down on the Trust the Profits YouTube page. My name is Colin Sheehan. I have now hit 2 out of 3 weeks. Don't call it a hot streak. That's right. 2 out of 3. I hit last week. We're on a roll here. We're moving that profit up. But first, this week's question of the day is, what is your favorite Kentucky Derby prep race? Everyone kind of considers this weekend the true start to the trail to the Kentucky Derby with the Lecomte Stakes at the fairgrounds. I'm happy to be joined by Sean Patrick Nolan, SPN Nation 74 on your Twitter. Sean, how are we doing today?
I'm doing fantastic, Colin. Thanks for having me on today, bud. Really excited to be here.
Do you have a favorite Kentucky Derby prep race?
I would say in history, my favorite one's probably the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland has always been my historic favorite one because that's the one to me that kind of signals we're really close to the Derby,
Exactly,
and usually we get a pretty good runner from it too. So,
and that's how I feel about the Florida Derby, which is probably what I would put up
and
there
that's my
as my
second.
number one.
That's the one I grew up on. So that is I'm right with you there. That's 1 and 1A. That's almost a dead heat. I'm right with you.
Absolutely. So Doubling Down, this is Sean's first episode on Doubling Down as we bring up our guest standings. Look at all these guests that have just torpedoed. They're all in the red. So I said, I got to bring on a new guest here. You'll see my name this is actually our 21st episode. Through 20 episodes, I have not touched the red. We are positive $46 with our $7 profit last week. And hey, Sean,
that's amazing.
Small profits, small increments, and just keep going up, right?
Love it. You're on a roll, man. The pressure's on me. Exactly.
Well, considering how all the other guests have done, there's no pressure. You can come in and just let it roll. So Absolutely. With the Lecomte Stakes this week, we decided all the attention's certainly going to be at the fairgrounds, and what a great card they have on Saturday, January 21st. So on this show, we try to put together daily doubles. Do you play the daily double on your regularly?
I do. I that's one of my favorite bets by far is a daily double. I love it. Putting combos together. Even if you have like a favorite, if you have a real like long shot or strong, it's one of my favorite plays. So I'm definitely looking forward to this weekend. I'm definitely playing some doubles.
Yeah, and so we decided to go through the card and take a look at maybe where we have a nice. We always try to find a daily double that's going to pay out, right? That's what we're kind of looking for. You texted me and said Chop might be 2 to 5, and I said, well, we have to certainly avoid the Silver Bullet Day, right? So we decided to go back 2 races before that and start off on race 10 at the fairgrounds on Saturday, January 21st. So we're going to do races 10 and 11, but we have a caveat to add in there about race 11. If it comes off the turf, this will obviously change, and you can throw our show out the window. But we will give you a superb breakdown on race 10. So we have a field of 10, and 2 of these horses are a coupled entry, the 4 Fightin' Ready and the 10 Silver Bull. So the numbers are also going to change. So you have to keep updated to us on our Twitter as these changes are happening. Since we're taping this on Wednesday night, we don't have the morning line. And certainly a lot that we're dealing with, but we'll get through it. We are fighters up here in Boston, right, Sean?
Absolutely. We'll get through it.
That's right. So where did you go in race 10 here, which is a 1.16 on the dirt for maidens, 3-year-olds?
Yeah. Okay. So I'm pretty deep here. I did 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8. And let me just put in a caveat here to the people. If it is if this is sloppy, I throw out the 4. So the Fightin' Ready is a main track fast pick. You know what I'm saying? If it's fast, I'm going with him. If it's sloppy, he goes out. Everybody else stays in.
And who did you like on top out of all those horses? That's like a Dennis Trusty pick right there.
Yeah, exactly. I like Mobster. Yeah, Mobster, and I will be totally transparent. If his odds are lower, my ticket might be reduced a bit because he's definitely the one. Like if I really like the way the track's playing, the way he runs, I may reduce my ticket. But Mobster, just the 3 races he's run, right? He came in second last time in the fairgrounds with Luis Saez. Luis Saez returns, which I think is a great thing. But if you look at his 3 races, which is quite remarkable, every race his buyers are improving. And you look at this group, and there's some horses that have run some pretty good races, but their buyer numbers aren't huge yet. And they're still 3-year-olds, so they can definitely improve, but they haven't run huge buyers yet. And this horse just as a top buyer, he keeps getting better. Mark Casse is so well known to move these type up, and he keeps getting better and better and better every start. Louis Sai is back. They're a great combo, so that's my horse on top.
Yeah, and I had Mobster as well. And if you follow Ryan Pip _, on Twitter, he does a great job putting out the winning positions and the winning running styles at the fairgrounds. And he actually just posted those. And for the dirt routes, the winning running style has been very fair. 36% have wired, 31% stalkers, and 33% closers. So to me, that's a pretty fair, pace that you're going to get. Although when you're dealing with 3-year-olds, it's a little tricky to know if the way that they ran in the first 2 races is going to be the same way that they're going to run in their 3rd race. But I liked Mobster as well. And the one thing that I put down about Mobster is look at the 2 horses he lost to. If you've been following the Kentucky Derby trail, these are 2 horses that we're hearing a lot about. Gun Pilot and Banishing. 2 horses that, of course, have gotten a lot of attention. And Mobster finished, although not close to Banishing, 8 lengths behind, 2 seconds in the last 2 races. So I included Mobster on my ticket as well. You'll also notice in this race that you have a lot of horses that ran against each other. December 8th at the fairgrounds, that was race number 7, and I went back and watched that race. That was the race won by Phileas Fogg, who, if I remember correctly, is the character in 100 Around the World in 80 Days, right? Is that
I do believe so, yeah.
I think he's like the main character.
Right. Yeah.
And he kind of put that field away, but Fightin' Ready was definitely better than the rest in that field. And so when I went back and looked at all the horses that are in this race that are coming back from that, I really think that Fightin' Ready was the best of the rest in that last. So he was one that I did not want to leave off, trained by Dallas Stewart with Edgar Morales up. I also like that in that last race, he was close throughout. And so although he didn't really get close to Phileas Fogg at the end, first call, second call, and the stretch run, he was all within 2 or 3 lengths. And overall, I think that's kind of where you want to be in this race with maidens, right? Because a lot of them kind of, once they fall behind, do they really want to continue on, as they say?
Yeah, and Morales is having an amazing meet so far. Very, very solid across the board.
Why don't you talk about the 2 and the 3 who I did not have on my ticket?
Yeah, okay. So I looked a little bit at the 2, Sherry DeVoe, Javier Castellano coming in. This horse is the real mystery horse here to me. I mean, you look at his first race at Ellis, did nothing right. He was a step slow. But if you watch the replay of that race, I think Brian Hernandez just realizes it was too slow a step and really doesn't really push the horse. You know what I'm saying? So it doesn't seem like that was really like, we're going to wait for another day.
It was a lesson.
It was a lesson, exactly. So he comes back to Churchill Downs at a mile, which is 1 turn, which is interesting, and at 47-1, almost breaks the bank there against B Minor, who's a very solid horse in his own right. Then he comes back to Keeneland around 2 turns. Something goes wrong there because he came in 6th and he lost to Cyclone Mischief, who, if anyone follows along in my imagination, and King Dioro. So he had some good horses there. Something went wrong, and now he comes back. Javier comes in, which to me is a wonderful thing because I think him and Sherry are like 22% together as a tandem. He comes in to ride the horse. First time Lasix, which I think may explain what may have happened in the last race. And now he gets Javier up there. Again, that's another one that maybe if it's off the turf, I might throw out. You know what I'm saying? Exactly. But on the fast track, Sherry DeVoe, Javier Castellano, first time Lasix, that 70 buyer, if he can produce that versus this group, he's right in there with them. And
how
the
about
three
three?
baseline beater is Neil Passon, who's having a good meet so far. He's 9 out of 18 in the money. He and Corey Lannery are 21% together. So it's a good, strong combination. What I like about this horse is that, again, the buyers are solid 64, 60, 57. But also he was in that last race, and he was back and then flattened. But what I like is that first time at fairgrounds that sometimes horses need, just like if you're going to give our favorite Mobster an excuse, in the first race, you're losing by 8. That was also baseline beater's first race on the track, like in his race. He did flatten a bit, but I think he'll get something out of that. And he's worked solidly since. So I think at a price, I'm looking for a little bit of a price there. I put him in as he stretches out flatter, sees the flag. I think the longer the better for him.
And we both agree on the one Onasa. For me, it was kind of leaning back on my foundation of with the maidens wanting horses that'll be more forwardly placed. And I feel like Onasa will be one of those more forwardly placed horses that also the speed figures that he's been assigned. There's a little inside joke on Trust the Profits because I say earned, and the horses don't earn them. They're assigned to speed figures. So there you go for that. Those that like to criticize me. So he was an assigned Brisnet speed figure of a 78 and an 81. So there's progression there, which not huge, but I think another step forward. Last race was also on the synthetic. I'm a little bit worried that that was why he did better in the last race, and maybe his first race on the dirt is more indicative, but that was also only at 6 furlongs. Sired by Always Dreaming out of a Damn Sire of Candy Ride. A little bit. I'm not crazy about this horse. The other thing that stood out to me was the bullet workout, 1 out of 88 on January 14th at Fairgrounds, going 48 seconds flat. That was kind of what decided the putting him over the top on adding him to my ticket.
Sure. And for anybody who's followed Canterbury or Colonial Downs this past summer, there was no hotter combination than Jareth Loveberry and Ravelli. When those two get together, it's business. I think they're 25% together. They win a lot of races. And for Ravelli to step in, usually Ravelli's known as the synthetic trainer. But the fact that the reason why I threw him in, which I also like, is the fact that bullet work, as you said, but the fact that he earned a 63 on the dirt and a 65 on the synthetic. So we have a horse here who at least on paper seems like he could, perform on multiple surfaces here. And to have the buyers in the same time, usually in my experience, sometimes the polytrack and the dirt numbers can be greatly varied. Here, they're pretty consistent in his 2 starts. So it's showing like he's got some ability. That's why I threw him in.
So I'll tell you, I'm a little nervous here because I added the 9 to my ticket, 2 Rivers Over, which is a horse that's been racing up in Woodbine for 3 times.
Yes.
Then gets claimed by Brett Calhoun. Yep. And I said I was intrigued by the way that this horse closed. All 3 races, this horse has been coming really late. And the note 2 back said weaved through horses in the stretch. To me, that's like this horse has got something. And also this race is for horses that have not started for less than 50,000. Well, this horse, all 3 races were at 127K in the maiden special weight. The other ones have dropped down and tried 50, 60. This horse hasn't. So I'm hoping that both, if you want to consider that a drop in class, and also the way that this horse closes, maybe some of the other ones are going to be getting tired, and 2 Rivers Over is going to pick them up late. But you're my Woodbine expert. If I ever have questions about Woodbine, I'm like, hey, Sean, what's going up here? And you don't have them on your ticket. So now I'm worried. Am I in trouble not adding 2 Rivers Over?
No, I really don't think so. He's out of a Spatestown mare and Cowboy Cow. So clearly the distance is not going to be a problem for him. I actually had him in the last race at 5-1 when he was weaving through that field. So I'm actually very familiar. Josie Carroll, she's the first woman Hall of Famer up there at Woodbine. She's a fabulous trainer. had this horse, and he was a very young horse. You know what I'm saying? But you could tell the talent's clearly there, and Calhoun picks him up. First time Lasix, which I think is great because Brett, I believe, is like 22% with first time Lasix. So that could definitely move this horse up even more. You got Deshaun Parker. How can you go wrong with Deshaun? He's always, So I would say definitely worth a look at a price for sure.
So I go 1, 4, 8, 9. Sean goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8. So we move on to race 11. This is for Saturday, January 21st at the fairgrounds. Race 11 is the one that we have to have some caveats because this race is supposed to be run at 5.5 furlongs on the turf. However, it looks like the rain is moving in on Saturday, and you could have 50, 60, 70% chance of rain. And if they move it off the turf, it's certainly going to impact how you might play this race, especially with these also entered. You have some pretty strong dirt horses in the 10 surveillance and then the 11 Bango, although it always reminds me of banjo. So El Hombre can sound the horn, and we can remember my pup banjo. Yep. But we're going to handicap this for now, both in the description and also we'll post out changes that we have to make. So with this being 5.5 furlongs, a stake race on the turf, where were you going?
Well, I was looking at the figures, and on buyers, right? You have to give Anguston a huge chance in this race. His last race with Mitchell Merle up. I know Brian Hernandez has been riding him a ton, but Mitchell Merle gave him a great. Lonnie Wiggins, legendary trainer out of Oaklawn, always has them ready. And that 96 buyer, what a huge and what a determined, race. And before I start, I want to always tell the people, watch a couple of races beforehand to kind of get an idea on how, before you're making any ticket, before you punch that final ticket, on how these fields are playing. Is the speed holding? Are they coming from behind? Because obviously we're on Wednesday. It's Saturday. We don't really know how that turf will be playing, But Anguston's going to be right there up at the top. He has a 96 buyer. That was a huge performance at Churchill Downs. You always worry, will there be a bounce? He's 8 years old, but he's a pro, and he knows what he's doing. So obviously Evan Singh, it was my second choice there. Yep.
Yeah. Real quick about Anguston, the number 5, and for those loyal viewers of our show, a couple of weeks ago, there was a horse by the name of Spooky Channel who hadn't raced in like 445 days or something like that. And I said on the show, I don't remember who it was with, maybe Vinny, and I said, if a horse like this beats me off this long of a layoff, then so be it. And so here you go again with Anguston, who, if you're just looking at the speed figures, boom, on the Brisnet, it's 100 and it towers over everybody else in this field. That was also off of a 2-year layoff going into that race. So he's shown that he can do it, but this is a 583-day layoff. The work's still there. He's been working out, but look, this is just kind of one of those, an 8-year-old coming off 583 days. I'm going to let that horse beat me.
Yeah, that's why my top pick is I was saying in terms of the buyer, my top pick is the 4, Evan Singh. Because of that, the 5 would be my second because that layoff is just a great concern to me.
Yeah, and we both agreed on the 4, Evan Singh. This horse has raced 6 times on the turf, has 2 wins, a second and a third, so 4 out of 6 in the money, which isn't bad. The thing that I noticed, this horse doesn't start very good out of the gate.
No.
The last 3 races, he's been 7.5 lengths, 11 lengths, and 7.5 lengths behind. And in a 5.5 furlong race, that's not really where you want to be, right?
Well, the interesting thing that I found fascinating here, right, is that Colby Hernandez climbs back aboard, and if you look at his 3 races with Colby managed to get him out of the gate all 3 times very well, including 1 win at Fairgrounds. So if sometimes jockeys just have the magic touch with certain horses. And if Colby gets back on this horse and all of a sudden they have the chemistry back working again, and he can get him, as you said, better out of the gate, he could be really dangerous.
Yeah, and we agreed on the 4. So I went with the 3 and the 4 in this leg. I like Boldor. This is the number 3.
Yep.
If you got to do a little, as I like to call it, filtering.
Yes.
You got to filter with your eyes. And sometimes when you just go and look at the speed figures that they are assigned, not earned, you see some pretty low ones on there, including at least by Brisnet, a 38. And they're kind of all over the place. But then if you do the filter and look at the 5.5 furlongs on the turf, there's a continual progression. Now, this horse is 7 years old, but when you look at the earnings on the turf, this horse has raced 12 times and has earned $251,000 over the turf. As you're kind of going through the field, I hadn't seen a ton of, I think there was one other horse that had more earnings on the turf. That was the Anguston, as we talked about, and I told you I was leaving that horse off because of that.
Sure.
I also like the fact that this horse is third off of the layoff. Asmussen and Tyler Gaff, they kind of seem to be a new tandem, so to speak.
Yes. Yep.
So that's interesting to me. And last out, this horse lost on the dirt to Flash of Mischief. And if you've been following me on Twitter, not many horses came back from the Breeders' Cup and were able to win. Flash of Mischief was one of those horses. So look, I'm hoping that this will be my little bit of my price play.
Sure.
Relying on that previous turf experience. And that's all I went with in this leg was the 3 and the 4 if it stays on the turf. And we have to keep kind of saying that because when people join in the show at different times, they might miss that. So that's if this race stays on the turf. I am going with the 3 and the 4. You also added the 1 and the 5 and the 10.
Yeah.
1 and the 10, sorry.
Yeah, and obviously Surveillance will be also eligible. So we'll see if he draws in. However, the 2 races that he has run on the turf have been pretty darn solid. He in the 5.5 furlongs at Churchill Downs lost to Totally Boss, who that's no shake in the head there. Excellent horse there. And then at Fairgrounds at 5.5 furlongs on the good, which it could be even tomorrow, he won with Adam Bashiza. So he's only had 3 turf races, but won first and the third, and he did win at Fairgrounds. So he has shown a liking to the course. So I thought that was interesting. Now, Pyron, of course, everyone would think I would pick him because my boy Declan Carroll's on there. So, of course, yeah, sure. The Casse Carroll connection, David and Declan, who I love. But look, every time this horse runs at Fairgrounds on the turf, he runs well. He's always coming at the end, and there looks to be a lot of speed in here. So if Declan, who has done very well with this horse, he won the Colonel Power last year, almost won the Cheryl Memorial, coming from the back, both at 19-1, they let him go. If he could do that effort again, he's been working pretty decent. If he can do that at a price, I think he's definitely worth a shot.
Yeah, I considered him. I did that filter again. I highlighted Carroll, as you said, on the 2 races that that horse had run. Just concerned with how far back he is at the the calls of the races. I mean, and in the 5.5 on the turf, I'm generally just going to tend to always sort of, lean towards that early speed, even though in this race I kind of am going against what I said, but I'm hoping that 4 gets a better break and he's not as far back as he usually is.
Sure. And I would hope for him that he's more like when he won the Colonel Brad, like 6, but only like 7-6 off, not like 12 off. He's a little bit closer where he can get that late kick, because if he's 12, 13 lengths off, I don't think he's going to have enough to catch the front runners, especially.
So I went 3 and 4. One horse that I was intrigued by that I left off was I didn't see, I think the 6th Sign of War might be interesting in being able to just wire the field, but best performances were at Lone Star and Remington Park, and then came to Fairgrounds and lost by 11 lengths. That's kind of what made ultimately why I left this horse off. But he's shown the ability to go 21-44 many, many times at Lone Star and also in Houston. But I just think that he may be overmatched here.
Well, that was kind of my thinking with throwing in a couple of those other horses. If Anguston and Sign of War and a couple of the other, go for the lead,
The nine,
you
yep.
could
My pal Maddie.
You could have a little meltdown there up in the front, and then it could set up for a closer, So that's why I kind of threw them in just in case those guys went too fast. Anguston coming off the layoff, Sign of War, obviously, if those two are kind of ding dong up front, maybe sets up, and even Yankee 7 might go towards the lead. So if you have like three horses up there who could be, trying to go for it early, it could set up for a closer, definitely.
And so that's what we have for our tickets if this race stays on the turf. I go 1, 4, 8, 9 in the first leg with 3, 4. That is $8. SPN Nation, I think, breaks the record for the highest ticket, going 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8 with the 1, 4, 5, 10. But before we go away, I guess we'll just say, let's just say this race is moved off of the turf to the dirt.
Yes.
You assume the last 3 also enters probably get in with scratches.
Yes.
Do you still put Surveillance above who I would assume will be the other threat on the dirt, Bango?
Yeah, I would. I don't exactly. It would be a different outcome because I don't think Evan Singh stays in the race if it's off the turf. That's my guess. And obviously Anguston I don't think is the same horse. It would be out too. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
I would be literally, I would throw the 1 still in. I think the 1 Pyron, even on a wet track, moves up big time versus this group. And obviously Asmussen's horse it has run very, very well on the wet. So I think the 3 Boulder, who you like, would also move up on a wet track, because it's interesting, as you were saying earlier, all his big races have been against Virginia breds. What do you call? I actually saw him at Colonial, and he was very impressive when he did. But he's run some very big races on the wet. So if this is wet, I think that's, out of money, Spatestown, my favorite combination in the mud. He moves up huge. So I would, if it was off, I would be 1, 3, 10, 11.
1, 3, 10, 11. If it was off, I would be definitely 10 and 11. Depends on what the odds are. That's when you have to start paying attention to those will pays. Yep. I don't want to give you tickets that you're going to lose money on, but I also on this Wednesday can't tell you what those would be. I would probably go 3 and then pick one, either the 10 or the 11. And with my boy Banjo, I'd probably pick the 11 just so I don't get beat by my my favorite dog. So very good. Thanks so much, Sean. Hopefully you can break out of this guest cold streak that they've been on. And I love when we both have a chance to win, which we do this week. Last week, King George and I were completely different, so we both couldn't win. But this week, me and you both can win, which is what we always hope for. Thanks so much for joining me.
Absolutely, buddy. Always a pleasure. Good luck this weekend.